Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be exploring the world of maritime law.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, and specifically,
I love a good maritime law deep dive.
how a seafarer's pre-employment medical exam can affect their uh, ability to claim disability benefits later on.
Oh, wow.
So we found a Philippine Supreme Court case that really brings this whole issue to life.
Okay.
It's the story of Nelson Celestino,
Nelson Celestino.
a seafarer who ended up in a legal battle with his employers, Belgium, Philippines, and Belgium, Singapore.
So this is an international case then?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Interesting.
It crosses borders,
Yeah.
because of the nature of the work.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these things get so complicated.
Right. And what makes this case so interesting is it shows how something as routine as a medical exam can have huge implications down the line.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially in a demanding field like seafaring.
Yeah, those pre-employment medicals, they seem pretty straightforward, but they can come back to bite you or help you, as we'll see in this case.
Exactly. And this isn't just some dry legal case, right? There's a real human story here.
Right.
Celestino passed his pre-employment medical exam with flying colors.
Oh, okay.
But just a few months into the job, he's facing a serious health crisis
Wow.
and filing for disability.
So he was deemed fit to work,
Yeah.
and then, boom, something happened.
Yeah, to understand how this happened,
Yep.
we have to kind of rewind a bit.
Okay, let's rewind.
So Celestino was hired as a third officer
Third officer. Okay.
back in June of 2012.
2012, all right.
And he went through the standard pre-employment medical checks,
Right.
including questions about diabetes and kidney problems.
Okay, standard stuff.
Which he said he didn't have.
Right.
So he gets the all clear
Yeah.
and starts working on, this ship was called the M/T Gandhi on July 1st.
Okay, so everything's, looking good so far.
Yeah, so far so good.
He's on the job,
Yeah.
sailing, third officer.
But things take a dramatic turn just 5 months later.
5 months later.
Yeah, December of that same year.
Oh, wow.
Celestino suddenly became severely ill.
Okay.
He was experiencing intense discomfort, high fever, chills, even convulsions.
Convulsions. That's serious.
It was so serious.
Yeah.
He had to be hospitalized in Ghana.
Oh, wow. So he's far from home at this point.
Far from home.
That adds another layer of stress and complexity to this whole situation, doesn't it?
I know, it's got to be terrifying,
Yeah.
being that sick,
Yeah.
so far from home.
Absolutely.
What did the doctors find?
Well, the initial diagnosis was diabetic de novo.
Okay, diabetic de novo.
You know what that means is
And I don't know what that means.
he developed diabetes while he was on the ship,
Oh, okay.
not before.
So it wasn't pre-existing?
It wasn't a pre-existing condition.
Wow.
Later, he was also diagnosed with
Okay.
ureterolithiasis.
Ureterolithiasis.
Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast
I can't even say it once.
after being sent back home to the Philippines.
So they got him back to the Philippines.
They did, eventually.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, what is that?
So ureterolithiasis, it's the medical term for kidney stones,
Oh.
which are, incredibly painful
Yeah.
and can be caused by dehydration,
Dehydration. Okay.
something that's, not uncommon
Right.
in physically demanding jobs like Celestino's.
Right. They're out there,
Yeah.
working hard, maybe not
Right, exactly.
drinking enough water.
Yeah, you're focused on the task at hand, you're sweating,
Yeah.
you might not be.
Staying hydrated.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have this guy who was declared fit to work, and then bam,
Bam.
a few months later, he's dealing with diabetes and kidney stones.
Yeah, that's a pretty big change.
It makes you wonder if, the tough working conditions,
Right.
the long hours,
Yeah,
maybe even the food on board
yeah.
played a role in his illness.
You would think so, right?
I mean, I would think.
I mean, it's hard to say for sure, but
Yeah, I guess that's the
There's
million dollar
facts.
question.
it is. It really is.
That's what led to this legal battle.
Right, because somebody's got to be responsible.
Right, so let's unpack this legal battle.
Okay, let's get into it.
Where do we even begin?
Well, first, you need to understand the Philippine legal system a little bit.
Okay.
The initial ruling came from the labor arbiter,
Okay.
who's like a judge
Okay.
specifically for labor disputes.
Okay.
So the labor arbiter sided with Celestino,
Okay.
saying his illnesses were work-related
Okay.
and granting him total and permanent disability benefits.
Wow. So round one goes to Celestino.
Round 1 to Celestino, yeah.
But I'm guessing it wasn't that simple.
You guessed right.
Okay. So what happened?
The employers appeal the decision
Okay.
to the NLRC,
The NLRC, okay.
which is kind of like a higher court
Okay.
for labor cases. They argued that diabetes isn't usually caused by work,
Okay.
and that Celestino hadn't gotten an independent medical opinion before filing his claim.
So they're trying to, like,
Yeah.
poke holes in his case.
They're trying to, find any little,
Find weaknesses.
any little thing they can to kind of, dismantle his case.
So what happened then?
Well, the NLRC actually reversed the initial decision,
Oh, wow.
siding with the employers.
Okay.
And to complicate things further, the Court of Appeals,
Oh.
which is, even higher up the legal ladder,
Yeah.
upheld the NLRC's ruling.
Wow.
They pointed out that Celestino filed his claim before the 240-day period for medical assessment was over.
Oh, there's a time limit on these things.
There is, yeah.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of rules and regulations
Yeah.
when it comes to these kinds of claims.
So it sounds like Celestino was hitting roadblock after roadblock.
He was.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
So what did he do?
He didn't give up. He took his case to the highest court in the Philippines,
Okay.
the Supreme Court.
All right. Supreme Court.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay. I'm on the edge of my seat.
I bet you are.
What happened at the Supreme Court?
This is where the POEA SEC,
POEA.
or the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration Standard Employment Contract.
That's a mouthful.
It is. But it's basically the contract
Okay.
that governs the employment of Filipino seafarers
Okay.
working on ships from other countries.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the rule book
Oh.
for this whole situation.
Gotcha.
And there's a key provision in this contract
Okay.
called disputable presumption.
Disputable presumption.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, it's actually simpler than it sounds.
Okay.
Basically, even if an illness isn't officially listed as an occupational disease,
Okay.
specific to seafaring, there's an assumption that it could be related to the work.
So in Celestino's case, even though diabetes and kidney stones
Mm.
aren't automatically considered work-related
Right.
for seafarers,
Right.
there's a chance they could be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this disputable presumption
Mm-hmm.
shifts the burden of proof
Oh, interesting.
onto the employer.
Okay.
So instead of Celestino having to prove his illnesses were caused by his job,
Right.
Belgium has to prove they weren't.
Oh, so they flip the script.
He flipped the script.
It's a pretty big advantage for Celestino, right?
Absolutely, yeah, it really is.
Okay, so instead of him having to prove that it was caused by his work,
Right.
now they have to prove
Well-
that it wasn't.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow, okay.
And this is where his squeaky clean pre-employment medical exam
Right.
becomes crucial.
Yeah, because he passed with no signs of
Yeah.
diabetes or kidney problems.
Exactly.
And because those conditions developed while he was working for Belgium,
Mm-hmm.
it makes it even harder for them to argue
Right.
that his job had nothing to do with it.
Exactly, yeah. It makes their case a lot harder.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court had actually addressed similar situations in the past.
Oh, yeah.
There are two cases,
Okay.
Zonio v. 88 ACES Maritime Services and GSIS v. Court of Appeals,
Sure.
that set legal precedents in favor of the seafarer.
So there's already been
Yeah.
cases like this.
Yeah, so it wasn't totally out of the blue
Okay.
for the Supreme Court to be considering this.
Yeah, so they could look at those and be like,
Mm-hmm.
well, we already ruled on something similar to this.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
They had a kind of a roadmap.
So these previous cases
Mm-hmm.
essentially paved the way
They did.
for Celestino's case.
Yep.
It sounds like the odds were finally starting to tilt in his favor.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
Okay.
But to find out what the Supreme Court ultimately decided,
Yeah.
you'll have to stay tuned for part 2.
Oh, don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.
We'll be back in a flash to reveal the final verdict and dive deeper into this whole POEA SEC thing
Yep. It's going to get juicy.
and its impact on cases like this.
We'll see you soon.
Welcome back. Before the break, we left off with Celestino's case reaching the Supreme Court.
It was a real cliffhanger, wasn't it?
I'm dying to know what happened. Did they uphold the previous rulings or did they throw him a lifeline?
Well, the Supreme Court really dug into that POEA SEC.
Right, that contract we talked about that protects Filipino seafarers.
Yeah, they looked closely at Section 20,
Okay.
which deals specifically with disability benefits.
Right, and that's where this whole disputable presumption idea comes in.
Exactly.
It's a bit of a legal tongue twister, but it sounds like it was crucial for Celestino's case.
It really was.
Yeah.
So Section 20 basically says that even if a seafarer's illness isn't on that official list of occupational diseases,
Right.
the employer still has to prove
Okay.
that it wasn't caused or aggravated by their work.
So it's like flipping the script, putting the onus on the employer to demonstrate that the work environment wasn't a factor.
Exactly. It's a big shift in responsibility.
That seems like a huge win for seafarers.
It is.
It acknowledges that their job can be dangerous
Yeah.
and that sometimes illnesses develop that aren't so easy to directly link to work.
Right. You can't always draw a straight line between the job and the illness.
Right.
But that doesn't mean the job didn't play a role.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Seafarers work long hours.
Hmm.
They're exposed to harsh weather conditions.
Absolutely.
They might not always have the healthiest food options.
Nope.
And they're often under a lot of stress.
It's a demanding job for sure.
All these factors can impact their health over time.
Absolutely. It's like a perfect storm brewing sometimes.
So in Celestino's case, even though diabetes and kidney stones aren't always directly caused by work,
Right.
the demanding nature of his job and the potential impact on his health couldn't be ignored.
Exactly. And that's why this disputable presumption clause is so important. It gives seafarers the benefit of the doubt when it comes to their health
Right.
and forces employers to take a closer look at the potential risks of the job.
But it's not a free pass for seafarers.
No, definitely not.
The employer still has a chance to fight back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They can present their own evidence to try to refute the presumption.
Okay.
They might bring in medical experts to argue that the illness is more likely due to genetics, lifestyle choices, or other factors unrelated to work.
So it becomes a legal tug of war,
It does.
with both sides presenting their arguments and the court ultimately deciding who has the stronger case.
Exactly. It's a battle of evidence and legal strategy.
And in Celestino's case, remember, he had that clean bill of health from his pre-employment medical exam?
Right. That was huge.
That was a key piece of evidence that supported his claim.
Absolutely. It made it much harder for Belcham to argue that his illnesses were completely unrelated to his work.
It's like that pre-employment exam came back to haunt them.
It sure did.
You mentioned earlier that the Supreme Court had dealt with similar cases before.
Yeah.
How did those cases impact Celestino's chances?
Those previous cases, Zonio v. 88 ACES Maritime Services and GSIS v. Court of Appeals, set important legal precedents.
Okay.
In both cases, the court ruled in favor of the seafarer,
Oh, wow.
stating that this disputable presumption applied even when the illness wasn't on that specific list of occupational diseases.
So Celestino's lawyers could point to those earlier cases and say,
Right, exactly.
look, the Supreme Court has already ruled on this type of situation, and they sided with the seafarer.
It's all about building on those past victories.
It sounds like those earlier decisions really shifted the legal landscape in favor of seafarers.
They did. They really set the stage for Celestino's case.
It's like a ripple effect, where one legal victory can create waves of change.
I like that analogy.
Now, going back to Celestino's case,
Yeah.
you might be wondering if his initial no answers on the medical exam about diabetes and kidney issues
Oh, good point.
ever came back to bite him.
Yeah, you'd think that would be a problem.
Right, it seems like that could have undermined his entire case.
It could have, but the court actually addressed that.
They did.
They said the burden of proving misrepresentation lies with the employer.
Oh, okay.
In other words, Belcham had to show that Celestino intentionally lied on his medical exam,
Gotcha.
and they just couldn't provide enough evidence to support that claim.
So even though he technically answered no to those questions,
Right.
the employer couldn't prove that he knew he had those conditions at the time.
Exactly. It's a nuanced legal point, but it's important.
It is, yeah.
It highlights how important it is for both seafarers and employers to really understand their rights and obligations under the POEA SEC.
Right, because it's not just about knowing the rules.
Correct.
It's about having the right documentation to support your case.
Absolutely.
In Celestino's situation, his pre-employment medical exam combined with those earlier legal precedents played a huge role in his favor.
They were the key pieces of the puzzle.
So after all that back and forth, after all those appeals and legal arguments,
Years of this.
yeah, what was this Supreme Court's final decision?
Drum roll, please. The Supreme Court ruled in Celestino's favor.
What?
They overturned the previous rulings, reinstated the initial decision of the labor arbiter,
Wow.
and awarded him total and permanent disability benefits.
Wow. What a victory.
It was a long road, but he got there.
It sounds like justice finally prevailed.
It did.
Yeah.
And this case has implications that reach far beyond Celestino's individual situation.
Right.
It sends a powerful message to employers in all industries, reminding them that they have a responsibility to protect the health and well-being of their workers.
It's not enough to just check a box with a pre-employment medical exam.
Nope, not at all.
Employers need to create a culture of safety, prioritize prevention,
Absolutely.
and be accountable when their work environment negatively impacts their employees' health.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm curious, though.
Yeah.
This case was decided in the Philippines. Do these same protections exist for seafarers in other countries?
That's a great question.
What about workers in other risky professions?
Yeah, like construction workers or miners.
Right, exactly.
We'll explore those questions and more in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We just heard how the Supreme Court in the Philippines ruled in Celestino's favor. It's a pretty landmark decision.
Yeah, it really is. This case has implications that reach far beyond just this one seafarer.
Right.
It raises some really important questions about worker rights and employer responsibilities.
Yeah, and not just in the maritime industry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Across many industries.
It's a reminder that a pre-employment medical exam isn't some kind of a,
Get out of jail free card.
yeah, like a shield for employers to hide behind.
Right. It's not enough to just say, well, they were healthy when we hired them.
Right. You have to create a safe work environment.
Absolutely. And acknowledge that certain jobs just come with inherent risks.
And that those risks can have long-term health consequences.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, not just reactive.
So instead of just dealing with illnesses after they happen, you're trying to prevent them in the first place.
Right. Prevention is key. It's about having strong safety standards, regular health checkups for employees, and really taking those steps to minimize risks.
So this case could be a real game changer for other industries, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Where workers face similar risks.
Think about construction workers, miners, factory workers, even first responders.
They're all exposed to hazards that could have serious long-term health effects.
Right. And this case highlights the importance of keeping detailed records, having thorough medical documentation, and seeking legal advice if you believe your health has been affected by your job.
It's about empowering workers to advocate for themselves.
Exactly. You have rights.
To know that they have options.
Yes.
If their workplace is making them sick.
And for employers, it's a wake-up call. Cutting corners on safety can end up being much more costly down the line.
Yeah, not just financially, but in terms of their reputation, too.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to work for a company that doesn't prioritize safety.
It seems like everyone wins when worker safety is a core value.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's about creating a culture of well-being.
Yeah.
Not just meeting some minimum legal requirement.
But proving that a worker's illness is directly caused by their job can be tough.
It can be, yeah.
It's not always black and white.
Right, especially with complex illnesses that might have multiple contributing factors.
It's like trying to piece together a puzzle where some of the pieces are missing.
That's a great way to put it.
That's why having a good lawyer who specializes in this area is so important.
Absolutely. Someone who understands workers' compensation law, occupational health law. They know how to connect the dots between the workplace and the illness.
They can navigate the legal system and fight for your rights.
Exactly. They're your advocate.
Celestino's journey from that initial fit-to-work declaration to his victory in the Supreme Court.
It's inspiring, really.
Yeah. Shows the power of persistence.
Absolutely.
And the importance of fighting for what's right.
Even when the odds are stacked against you.
These legal battles can take years.
They can.
And it's a marathon, not a sprint.
All said.
And even cases that seem really specific to one industry, they can have a ripple effect.
They can change the landscape for everyone.
And that's what's so powerful about this case.
It's a landmark decision for sure.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive today.
We did it.
But the conversation about worker safety, fair legal systems, and justice.
Those are ongoing conversations.
Those are conversations that need to continue.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, by exploring this case, we've given you some valuable insights.
Some food for thought.
Into these really important issues.
Knowledge is power.
Especially when it comes to protecting your rights.
And the rights of those around you.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those questions.
And remember, even small actions can make a difference.
Be an advocate for fairness and well-being in your own life.
You never know. You might just spark a wave of positive change.
We'll see you next time.